let me tell you about what this discussion is going to be. The topic, as I've mentioned before, is harnessing open finance data and collaborative efforts for enhanced fraud detection. So this panel is going to explore the transformative potential of open finance data and the importance of collaboration among various stakeholders, including cross-sector financial institutions, account aggregators, and fintech service providers, in combating fraud. By leveraging shared data and advanced analytics, stakeholders can create a more comprehensive view of data transaction behavior, identifying patterns in data and data flow that may actually indicate fraudulent activity. So get ready to gain insights into the best practices for fostering partnerships and implementing innovative solutions to improve the security and integrity of financial systems using the AA framework. With this, let's get ready to invite our list of our esteemed panelists on stage. Let me invite our moderator first, Mr. Nikhil Kurhe, CEO of Finarkein Analytics. Nikhil is the co-founder and CEO of Finarkein, a market leader and trendsetter in the account aggregator ecosystem. He comes with a data engineering background, having built massively scalable data processing systems at his past job, and continues to power India's open data network across financial services and healthcare. Welcome, Nikhil. Let me call upon our first panelist, Mr. Rajit Bhattacharya, the CEO of Data Sutram. Welcome, Rajit. So Data Sutram is an AI platform that leverages intel from more than 250 data sources to help enterprises find answers for growth. It's one of the fastest growing companies in the space of AI, having raised over $6.5 million from Bharat Innovation Fund, Singularity Ventures, IIFL, Kotak Securities, and so on. Welcome, Rajit. Let's invite Mr. Anil Yadav, who's the head data engineering at HDFC Securities. Anil leads the data engineering team, focusing on building and supporting next-gen data solutions. With over 16 years of experience, his expertise lies in ensuring quality, stability, scalability, and security, driving operational excellence and fostering a culture of innovation and agility. Our fourth panelist, Mr. Saurabh Maheshwari, who is the SVP Financial Crime Intelligence and Head Digital Transaction Monitoring at Axis Bank. He is a consumer insights and analytics professional with more than 18 years of experience. He has created self-serve platforms to drive customer empowerment and optimize cost to serve. He has led large-scale service excellence programs to ensure cultural change, and he's a part of board and executive reviews to track customer imperatives and impact. With this, we look forward to an interesting discussion on this topic.
Thank you. It is slightly past 6, so I know everybody is tired and has had a long day. And we're going to be talking about something very fun, fraud, right? I think that's an interesting way to kick off this panel. Thank you for the introductions. And so to kick this off, I would like to start with some of the basics. Let's talk about what is, and since each of you come from a very different background and a different slightly adjacent industry, I think the definition of fraud for individually for each of you, what you've observed and at your organization would be slightly different. I would love to hear, starting with you, Rajit, what is fraud for you and what have you seen, and as you've run Data Sutram, how has this definition really evolved for you?
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil, firstly, for that introduction. And, great to be alongside some of the most esteemed people from the industry, and great to see you, as you said, post 6. So for me, fraud fundamentally means something that can happen to all of us. I have been a victim of fraud. I have woken up in the morning and got a call from some random number asking me from my 4-digit Aadhaar, and I was victim to it. So if we see that fraud is something that happens to someone out there and not me, then we are all wrong. Fraud happens to each one of us. Today, fraud is taking advantage of vulnerability in terms of fear, in terms of greed, in terms of hope. And as a result, it's something that happens to all of us. But why are we today talking about fraud? And that's, I think, what I would want to at least start with. Today, when we imagined banking or we imagined financial infrastructure for 130 crore Indian, I think the challenge today was that as we looked at the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, the biggest problem was how do I ensure that the financial literacy or the financial inclusion that's happening happens securely. And I think that's where we came up with KYC systems, we laid down a digital public infrastructure. But more important than not, I think the core challenge was that, today our identifiers like PAN, Aadhaar, these identifiers are something that's, non-mutable. It's something that's fixed. But if you look at what we use actually for a transaction, which is phone number, email ID, now these things are changing. These things are not, these things are mutable. And hence, the challenge today is looking at billions and millions of data points across different aspects of life and understanding what is fraud. So, what I would like to conclude with is today what the best part about looking at fraud is fraud also has a pattern. When we hear a call coming in and saying that we are calling from RBI and your bank is going to get frozen, we know, we have heard this before. This is something that has a fraud. So I think the role of technology and the way we look at it is fraud is something that's emerging, but it's something that can be fought, something where there is a pattern, there is a changing pattern, but there is a pattern. And hence it's something that is going to be a necessary evil. It's here to stay. It's not going to go away. And like any other infrastructure, the digital public infrastructure that we are building will have potholes. And hence there will be challenges, and fraud to today's financial ecosystem is like a pothole to a highway. It's a loophole, it can be taken care of. It's with technology, with awareness, and with a social movement.
Thank you for painting that picture. Coming to you, Saurabh, I think when it comes to banking specifically, and we have these entities like the transaction monitoring group, or we have financial crime. Can you paint a light on that with respect to the kind of observations you have had around fraud?
Sure. I think building on what Rajit rightly mentioned, I think fear and greed and fear is the underlying sentiment. That's what we see across all the fraud cases we get, right? One of the pattern which we are seeing, and it reminds me of a movie actually, and let me take that example as well. It's become more personalized actually, right? And I'm sure most of us would have seen that movie, Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, right? Where I think Farhan Akhtar or Bobby, that they all tries this trick, right? Yaar, mujhe tere baare mein kuch pata hai, right? And he will actually get the truth out, right? So I think that's what is really working, what we are seeing in this whole fear and greed, right? And I think in the morning, Nandan sir talked about, that the fraud is not confined to any particular cluster, like, it's across demographics, across, bottom of the pyramid, middle of the pyramid, top of the pyramid, some or the other trick is working, right, for these fraudsters, right? So that's one trend which we are seeing, that fear and greed, that's the sentiment. When we do RCAs on root cause analysis on most of these frauds and try to build controls, we realize that there is nothing abnormal, right? There's something which has actually happened, right? So that's one trend actually, right? Fear and greed. The other one, with the evolution of the industry and the customer experience as a term becoming more prominent, right? Because you have to deliver that seamless experience to the customers. That's where, the fine balance of managing customer protection, which is fraud protection, versus giving a customer experience comes into play, right? Because you have to really create rules and curate them, or the rule fraud strategies, so that you're not distorting the experience of the customers to pick one fraud, right? And with the likes of Amazon, Swiggy's and all, people are really used to, one click and I should be through, right? So I think that's another pattern which we are seeing of how, the landscape of fraud is changing. So that's how I will summarize, in terms of what fraud to me is. with this anecdote of Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. I think that's what I see in most of the cases, right?
Got it. No, I think that really reminds me of one of the senior bankers at an NBFC who claims, friction is a feature for us, right? I think that has traditionally been the thought of process for a reason. And, we may want a more seamless experience, a seamless journey, but often there are trade-offs, and I'm sure you've been seeing some of those. So coming to you, Anil, you've I think very recently sort of transitioned into this sector, but you've worked at a couple of fairly large scale companies prior to this, and I think you can give us that flavor beyond the financial services sector as well. What exactly is the kind of fraud you have seen in markets beyond India?
Yes, first of all, I will be building upon Rajit and Saurabh. Rajit rightly started with, okay, this is all the fear and greed and majorly just playing with the mindsets. So some of the frauds which I have seen in industry, okay, many times when we are in fear, we start searching for the random things on the Google. And many times we end up finding the wrong numbers, and connecting with them will be again lead to different kind of fraud. So the pattern which Saurabh has been mentioning, this is one of the pattern which we really kind of trending over the time. While I was working with different financial institutions across, I realized that it's many times we have to educate the customers as well as helping them to identify, hey, what actually you are doing. This is not the right number. You have to reach out the right number, either just looking at the right information. So building at scale as well as educating will be helping us on this one. That's what is for to me. Like bringing that awareness to people that how you have to use the right feature. That's one of the tasks.
So, let me quickly also add a perspective of bringing it to the theme of, the account aggregator ecosystem. So we've been at Finarkein, been part of the AA ecosystem for a while now. And, we've been doing a fair bit of scale in the ecosystem. And what we've realized is after the initial level of intelligence that, we were able to build out, fraud became a very interesting area for us as well to sort of understand how things are playing out. And when it comes to the account aggregator, we have to understand that it is a consent-driven framework. So customers are providing consent, and when it comes to fraud analytics, broadly you have onboarding controls where you are looking for certain non-consented indicators and things like fingerprinting of devices and other factors, and then you have controls post onboarding to identify bad actors in your system, right? So I think the account aggregator definitely has a role to play here, and we are seeing some early signs, but I think we have somebody interesting on the panel who's doing controls prior to onboarding. So Rajit, why don't you walk us through what data Sutram has seen in the market recently? And I've been following you guys. I think in the last 6 to 8 months, you guys have really scaled it out. So would love to hear on the onboarding controls, what are some new emerging threats and trends that you're seeing?
Sure. So see, I think if I go back to what I was saying in terms of identifiers, right? If I look at onboarding, when a user is trying to come and onboard and open an account, right? I think the challenge today is that modernly KYC systems that we built out, we realized that government identifiers are our core. So we saw a PAN number, we saw an Aadhaar number. Now, the challenge is when it comes to contactability, phone number, email ID. Now, these things are something that you can change in a whisker, and you can drop a phone number, you can put in a different SIM card, you can take a new email ID. Now here there are no controls, there are no regulations, and hence the challenge is how do you build an identity bureau where you are actually able to monitor activity on a phone number and an email ID across social, digital, multiple platforms. And this is also where consent and non-consent journeys are both coming in. So in fact, what we are seeing is that if I'm looking at an individual identity, which is a combination of a phone number, email ID, address, device ID, if I look at multiple apps, multiple social digital platforms, I see a pattern.
in terms of usage, in terms of depth, in terms of vintage. And today we are exploring and we are seeing that market is accepting solutions where we are seeing patterns of fraud coming out through these identifiers. We are seeing recyclability of an email ID, recyclability of a SIM card, change of ownership of a phone number, name mismatch across private sources being actual triggers where mule and fraud are getting detected. Now, today the idea and the way the modus operandi of these mules are changing, the way I see AA come in and the way I see AA actually combine with the entire other ecosystem is saying that today what AA brings to the table is transactional data. And that transactional data layer is very powerful because at the end of the day, the problem statement in fraud and especially in money mule, which is one of the segments that we are all looking at, is the money trail. And what the AA can bring up is the money trail. So for example, if I'm onboarding a customer, can I know that if there has, or if I'm onboarding a merchant, can I get an indication of collusion out there from the AA data? Can I understand if this user actually maintains a certain balance with the other banks? Can I look at how their behavior is? So I think what AA will open up, and I think where we are seeing the AA ecosystem come in is at the time of onboarding, as well as looking at early warning signals on my portfolio when the customer is trying to purchase a product, trying to change a phone number. So at every point of interaction with the customers and the enterprise, where the customer is trying to make a transaction, how can you build in checks and regulations? And I think the way the DPDPB is coming up and the entire, I think the overall ecosystem is moving towards a consent framework. So the way we are looking at building fraud solutions is based on consent framework. Now the idea of concept can over time evolve. So that's how we are seeing the net role play out.
Yeah, I don't think the definition of consent should evolve over time. Consent should ideally be absolute and well defined. We can't have sort of moving goalposts around this. But I think you briefly sort of, touched on a collective industry sort of, registry. Saurabh, talk to me more about, what's coming up around the suspect registry and, why we need stakeholders and, financial organizations to contribute and collaborate on something like this. And, do you see an opportunity for the account aggregator being also a data stream to such a registry?
No, sure. Thanks, Nikhil, for bringing that, the National Cybercrime, which we call NCRP, which is a government body. So they have beautifully, I mean, it's early days they have started, but we are seeing that it's really going to help combat the fraud actually. So what they have done there is, they call it suspect registry, right? Which is nothing but a consortium data, right? So every bank, wherever they have detected frauds in their bank, through the different mechanism, through their internal monitoring, through the regulatory reporting, statutory notices, whatever has come, they create a pool of that database, right? And they submit it to NCRP. All of the banks actually, there are around some 20 plus banks which are sort of party to that suspect registry, right? And obviously, as a participating bank, we also submit our data. Now the way it helps is that there is a customer who has been tagged as, let's say, a fraudulent customer. Now next time, and obviously when the bank submits the data, they enrich the data with the officially valid documents, which is PAN, Aadhaar, and a couple of other details. So the next time when that customer is coming to, going to a different bank, right, to sort of onboard, then you clearly get those signals from the consortium data which is getting built, right? And it's been done there are early days, but it's been done very seamlessly through the API integration, right? So you kind of store that data, create your data model, store that data, serve it to different, onboarding journeys which you have, so that you can safeguard from a bad apple entering into the, to the system. Now, to your question, Nikhil, drawing parlance from what has happened in the NCRP and this account suspect registry, what they call, and the point which Rajit was making, I think, with this account aggregated data, right, and I use the term I was discussing in break, I think with Rajit only, there is a whole concept of liability underwriting is what I see like really building. And where an account aggregator can clearly play a role because, I would have limited information about the person who is coming to open an account with me, right? Tomorrow the same customer who is opening, today the same customer who I'm opened an account with, tomorrow obviously banks wants to, cross-sell different products, right? I'm going to offer him a loan or a credit card or any unsecured product, right? Now, how best I can use the account aggregator framework by understanding what transactions he is doing, right? Is he behaving in a way which is, let's say, a bad customer who is never going to be profitable? Forget about me cross-selling him anything, but on a standalone basis, even some savings account, he is not profitable for me, right? Do I really want to get that bad customer who will come into the fold and do some, anti-money laundering or mule activities and sort of, could lead to a reputation stake for the bank as well, right? If that's a mule, and we've seen certain incidences across banks where, we've seen such instances where the mule accounts have created havoc, right, for the bank and for the reputation of the bank, right? So I think this account aggregator model could be a good sort of I would say a toll gate as we onboard customers into the fold for opening a savings account by understanding what patterns of transactions they are doing. If there is a lot of transactions, they're getting money from a lot of third party, which has no relation to what that customer is doing, that money is getting cashed out through a cash or a bearer check, then certainly those are the customers we are, obviously no bank is looking for, right? So I think that's where account aggregator can play a big role. The starting point is suspect registry, but it's not getting into the transaction pattern. Account aggregator can go very well beyond that and look at the transactions and sort of, create an ecosystem of consortium is what I feel. That's my thoughts.
No, I think that's super interesting. I would love to see a version of this, being operational by next Samvad, where we would have hopefully a use case, on this registry. No, that's fantastic. I think so far we've discussed broadly, external facing, entities and, end consumers coming in for financial products and, fraud around that. I think I want to take a minute to talk about, controls inside our organization, especially a financial services organization, right? I think there is also a strong need for internal controls when it comes to related party transactions and certain reporting of, financial transactions. I'm aware of quite a few large banks, in fact, have built and spent serious engineering efforts, for example, in building intelligence modules on, say, their Teams transactions. So Teams with your communications, hote hai. There, we've seen a leading sort of bank, spend a lot of effort to tokenize those conversations and build intelligence around, suspect sort of, communications happening. I think there also is opportunity, and it's something that I'm sure Anil can tell us more about.
Sure, definitely. So the time we talk about the be it inter-office communication or inter-org communication, the data, the way we transfer data has to be identified how we are transferring. It has to be very secure, be it by tokenization or be it any other way. So starting the data journey from the time we get the user consent to the time we are passing to anyone, we have to ensure the whole data is encrypted. So there's multiple ways that we utilize in the HDFC code and earlier too. So one of the such example, like storing the data in plain fashion where everyone can access, can be one of the disaster situations. So encryption, be it on the rest or be it in the transfer, this will be one of the key security aspects.
So, Saurabh, one question for you. There are a bunch of companies here today,
Sure.
In the AA space. And, the broad interest is around really driving utility of this network.
Sure.
So when it comes to, banks and, particularly the domain of fraud,
Sure.
how should startups, think about it? Like when they're approaching banks, what sort of solutions are on priority? Are we talking about AML? Are we talking about transaction monitoring? Are we talking about any other opportunities you see? And,
Sure.
account aggregator is, just one piece of the
Sure.
puzzle. So where do you think, startups in the audience today should really sort of focus on?
Okay. I'm no expert, to guide some of the leaders in fintech, one sitting next to me. But yeah, actually my view is, there are a problem of plenty actually, that there are too many solutions, right? So if you ask me as a practitioner, who happens to be in the bank, there are too many solutions, right? So, and, obviously Rajit knows, you're doing POC half of the time, right? Actually, what is going to work, right? So I think, and specifically now linking back to account aggregator, right? While there are a lot of onboarding controls and solutions which today exist from likes of Sutram and the peers in the industry, I think account aggregator as a platform still can play a role which some of these cannot play actually, right? The one which I just spoke about, right? While it does a lot of social profiling, which Rajit spoke about in terms of their digital identity, in terms of, couple of other things, they do not do transaction behavioral identity, let me put it that way, right? Which I mentioned, right? So is there a need for a separate platform? The answer is no, because as I said, there is a problem of plenty any which ways, right? Can it seamlessly integrate into saying that there is an onboarding journey and there is a transaction journey, right? And this solution actually cuts horizontally by, giving you controls at onboarding, and by any chance if you happen to get a bad apple or who turn bad after getting in, then there is clearly a second toll gate of transaction monitoring, which will give you early warning signals by looking at what he has done here or what he is doing outside in the banking domain generally, if not with my bank account, which is open, let's say with Axis Bank, but couple of other banks. How can I use that collective intelligence of his transaction footprints to be then able to take a call? I think that's where the sweet spot lies actually, rather than getting onto one more solution. Because it's really difficult to implement a solution, and that has a long gestation period, to tweak workflows and get any new solution after the due diligence process of the bank, which Anil also touched upon. There is a security concerns, there is an infosec, there is CISO who is wanting to do something, and hence from a bank perspective or any institution, they would look for a solution which addresses multiple use cases, right, in the journey of that customer. That's what my take is, Nikhil, if you ask me.
Yeah, so I hear you. I think as an industry, we constantly oscillate between bundling and unbundling, and it seems like we are in a wave of rebundling, and platforms are making a comeback. So I think to sort of conclude this session, what I would like to do is, from each of you, I would love to hear a wish list of things you would like to see operationalized on, say, the A network, and how that can play a role to really tackle the issue of fraud. Anil, why don't we start with you?
So one thing which I would like to see on the A framework, the centralized monitoring system, the one which Saurabh just put a light. So right now we know in onboarding journey we can identify what the bad actors and bad apple. By the time we have a centralized monitoring system across, be it a kind of proactive or reactive, but that will definitely help to reduce the financial crimes. So not only for just the fraud that's happening to the normal people, even the money laundering. One of the biggest cases that Securities has to always fight, like how I have to stop getting that bad apple in, and also how should I stop going that money out of my systems. So if that financial is centralized, it will be easy for others to participate and keeping an eye that, hey, what quickly they can do to avoid or cut out that particular bad apple from the journey.
Rajit, let's hear from you.
So I think my idea and my perception is going to come from a different angle. I'm going to come from a person who's been in analytics for a while, and say that I think from an infra perspective, for players like us who are building solutions, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the infra layer can be leveraged in terms of building better applications. And how, as I think Saurabh very well put out, saying that we don't need 10 solutions to the same problem. What we need is a comprehensive solution. So the idea is, how do we emerge as an ecosystem where you have the data infra players, you have the platform players, you have the application players, you have the domain experts, and you have the clients, which are financial institutions, all come together to solve the problem. So I think, at least from my perspective, I think the idea should be to build more awareness, to build more openness in terms of the platform play, and making it available in terms of seeing how better we can leverage this infra layer that's coming up to build better solutions.
Got it. I think what you're calling for is a wave of consolidation in the infra market, which no definitely is a matter of time. I think it's an emerging market, and the way I look at it, if a market is crowded, it's because it's a large opportunity and an exciting opportunity. If you have no competition, you're in the wrong category, right? So Saurabh, any concluding remarks that you would like to share?
No, I think just 2 points to whatever has been said so far. So while there are standalone use cases for account aggregator, which we started using in some of the staff account monitoring work we do, specifically for Salesforce people, because we know there is an element of, or there is probability of that element which is there that somebody is colluding with someone, right? So that's where we are seeing a good use case of account aggregator. So that's one. I think on the point which Rajit made rightly, I think the onus is on the institutions like us also to create a seamless data layer where we work closely with analytics, because at one point in time we want a lot of data, that we need a lot of alternate data to make decisions. And when it's coming as separate silos, how do we orchestrate our data layer to be able to triangulate those points and create better controls? I think that's a work which institution like us will have to do to consume that power of siloed data, if I had to say. We'll have to make sense of it. So that's what I see it, Nikhil.
Correct. I think on my wish list is, with every new innovation and every new use case and every new sort of data source that, say, we bring online on the account aggregator network or, any other such open networks, there is fundamentally new attack surface. There is fundamentally, new opportunities for bad actors to really, exploit, some of these openings. And my only wish list is, actors who are implementing and, building out these new systems, new use cases. I hope we put enough guardrails in place. I hope we educate, our customers and their consumers enough to understand that, what is at risk here. Because end of the day, it's end consumers who would be impacted. And I think, everybody here, I'm sure, knows folks who have been involved in, certain fraudulent, who have been victims of, fraudulent transactions. So I hope, we evolve to a future where there are better controls and there is better education and awareness on, how such open networks can help us. So I think we have a minute for questions in case anybody wants to ask a few questions. I know we are a little over time and everybody looks pretty exhausted, but I think we can do a couple of questions. I guess the audience is also done for the day. Awesome. So I think we can wrap up.
All of you, thank you so much for being here and sharing your thoughts. We'd like to present you with a small token of our appreciation from Team Sehmati.